branches in other places, meaning relationships with people that really care about artists and what artists create. And we actually went to China, which was pretty cool.
And we'll talk about that when we look at your pictures, but tell us what we're looking at in these images.
A lot of smiling faces. These are our studios. And you have Kim Parker, which is on the left, who's a painter whose dream was to create like an artist compound. And literally, she was driving by one day, this lady in a Ford Explorer screeches to a stop and goes, "Oh my gosh, are you Rex Hausmann?" "Yeah, hi. I need a studio." "Okay, come on in," you know? And she has thrived from that point. And then Oscar is a sculptor who actually he lived in Monterrey, but now lives here. Katie Whitehead is an attorney, but is a glassmaker. And David Almaguer is actually one of the artists that started the Millworks with me from the very beginning, and that's one of his old dude stencils.
In the lower left.
And the lower left,
Yes.
Yeah, the lower left is our conference room, and we're starting the.
No, the lower right is your conference room.
Oh, the lower right. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic.
That's all right.
Big switch. If you ever get an email from me, good luck. These are some of our studios, kind of outside. That's Mark Gelat's work, and Fernando Andrade's work, and Casey Ruiz's work. And then one of my paintings from Kansas, which you'll hear about a little later, and some of David Almaguer's patterns. And then another detail of a piece. And what was really neat about the history of the Millworks is it kind of grew out of two things. One, which is a thing called Luminaria, which is a night out for the arts. I met David Almaguer at the very first Luminaria, and I thought his work was really great, and I had a gallery in Bernie, and I said, "Do you want to come out to Bernie and have a show?" And that kind of was the beginning of the end. And then Creative Capital was a program put together by the Office of Cultural Affairs, and I met a few other artists at that Creative Capital junket powwow thing, and we started having these conversations in our little quasi-conference room with no electricity, talking about art, and that was really the beginning of the Millworks. This was our first space, which is, we didn't have any electricity or running water, but we survived. And we threw a couple of shows basically for people that I knew. I went to the...
And these were former offices?
These were offices. This was a storage kind of complex for my family for screws. So this was like screws and nuts and bolts and all kinds of stuff. And we hadn't used it for many, many, many years. And I just said, I'm going to move into this area and clean it up. And literally had to move 2 tons of screws. It was amazing. Whoa. And then repainted it and put some Windex on it and started throwing shows. This was one of our first exhibitions. That's Patrick Wynn's down in the left-hand corner. It's called The Guppy, as we call it. But it was actually a pretty amazing piece. He did it for he went to the University of Texas at Austin, and this was his architectural master's thesis. And if any of you guys are Aggies, are there any Aggies here? No. The Tower of Stasel, that's a part of the Tower of Stasel. Then David Almaguer is up on the right-hand corner, smiling with a graffiti mural on the outside. But down in the bottom right-hand corner is Kyle Martin and Rolando Briseño, and there's a little coffee maker and a projector from John Cowan in New York, and then up in the left-hand corner is other just various pieces. Then we decided to expand. We went over into Building A, and this is when we actually finished moving out all the old machinery that was in the mill. For about 3 years, I was driving a forklift, moving machinery from this place to that place, and trying to figure out where we could put artists and move machinery. Those are our mobile kind of units that we constructed out of chipboard and 2x4s that my dad designed, and was like, hey, let's make little spaces that people can afford. And we've been throwing shows ever since. This was an exhibition that we did with Larry Graeber, and there's Donna Simons taking a tour through ours. There's Richard Tights over there. And that was one of the neatest show that we've done, because it was I don't believe Larry had shown a retrospect like this in about 12 years, and we had the space, and the show looked fantastic. It really was amazing. Something that we found in the mill is just finding talent that's absolutely exceptional. This is Bruce Hahn down in the right-hand corner, who's in Luminaria this year. And Bruce lives in Smithville. He basically was one of the forerunners of cloud computing, went to Princeton, turned down a scholarship from MIT to end up at UT because they started the first photograph. They have one of the first photographs, and he does these photographs called Photos of the Mind. And what he does is, for a day job, he creates computing systems for like gigantic corporations, like Advanced Auto Parts. And he hires computers, not people. And what he's done is he's taken algorithms and plugged in language to where the algorithm working is the art in and of itself, and these are somewhat like screenshots. And that's Philip and Suzanne Arevalo, who I always call Susanna, and they're just wonderful people. And that's my mom and my dad up in the right-hand corner. My mom came up with the idea of programming. This was with the Library Foundation. We had a part of National Poetry Month, kind of a junket on the poem Ithaca by Constantine P. Cavafy, and we packed the house, and it was really, really wonderful. And I'll kind of segue into the next slide, which is PAVE, which is an idea my mom came up with, which is people, access, vision, and encouragement. And her hope was really to have some component at the mill that was educational for artists. This was a shining moment when Diana Roberts had just come back from the National Museum of the Arts. She finished a residency there, and she spoke at the mill about her whole, she and Danville's experience in Washington, D.C. And Mark Gillott, one of our studio artists, came up and said, I've never been there, but now that I've heard Diana speak about it, I feel like I've been. So that was really an amazing, amazing little talk. We had way too much pizza. And people ask like where our whole growth kind of thing. We do a lot of projects in New York and in Kansas and Des Moines. We started in Mason, Texas, baby.
Oh no, not again.
Oh no.
Tech, help please. We just lost it again.
So as that image is burned into your mind.
I apologize for this computer. Talk about the places you've been, and then we'll look at the images so that we can keep it moving.
What we'll do is with the image, that was Mason, Texas, and kind of what the story was is a good friend of mine was an architect and said, hey, I want to do a giant show. I was like, okay, where? And he said, where I live, Mason, Texas. And Kyle's got a double rice degree, and he's a pretty smart cookie. And he's like, there's this old plane hangar that I think I can get for $300 for 4 months. I'm going to go for it. So we filled 20,000 square feet with art. It was insane. And it was David Almaguer, myself, Kyle Martin, and Russell Stevens.
Let's move into you brought images of the different cities you've traveled to, so
right,
talk about that.
Okay, so as we segue into that, we started doing exchanges with Lawrence, Kansas, from a curator with a show that I was in New York, and been sending Texas artists up there for about 5 years. We have another space that we work with in Brooklyn called Soapbox Gallery, and it's given a lot of people their first shows in New York. And from those shows, they've leapfrogged and had 4 or 5 more shows in New York. And then we finished a project in Lishui, China with President Romo. I co-curated a show with Arturo Almeida and worked with the UTSA and the Confucius Institute, where we took 5 Texas photographers, contemporary photographers and their families over to China for a week. And we visited 5 different cities and were part of an international exhibition that brought, I think, 300,000 people out from all over the world. It's been pretty amazing. We do a lot of exchanges with Des Moines, a lot of exchanges in Brooklyn, and starting to work on something in Los Angeles. But really large kind of projects involving lots and lots of people. We even took a 59-passenger bus to Kansas.
Keep talking.
Okay. Is this all right? Can I just speak? Because I got a blue screen. So what really, like, where all these big projects came from is trying to take San Antonio out there. You know, it's like, okay, San Antonio is a wonderful place. I'm 3rd generation San Antonian. The rest of the world needs to know about it. And a lot of these big projects revolve around trying to share what's so wonderful around us with the rest of the world.
Okay, there it goes. Okay, let's scroll.
And we can flash through some really quick slides. That's really quick. That's super awesome quick. And I get a little enthusiastic when I talk about art, so I'm keeping it pretty keyed down.
Could you guys stay close by just in case? Thank you.
Okay. programming, Mason.
Okay, so this is where?
That's our little garden. That's Lisa Lala's list wall project. That's Fernando Andrade's studio. And then we did some exchanges with the A-Lofts, which was really awesome. This was the bus trip to Kansas. You guys will probably recognize a lot of the people up there. That was just a wonderful show. Wonderful San Antonio show. We actually exchanged, this is by Anson Seal, the photograph. He's over there on the left, Mark Wiegand, a gazillion people that you probably all know.
So basically, you curated a show in Lawrence, Kansas, and you organized a bus trip, and many of the artists went with you.
Yeah, the concept was, let's not just have a show somewhere else, let's take all the artists with us. And we booked a 59-passenger bus, it was insane. And we went up for a 4-day junket of studio visits, museum lectures, museum shows, and all-out insanity on Lawrence, Kansas. It was awesome. Lawrence is awesome, by the way. This was the museum space that we installed in. That's Angel Rodriguez Diaz. That thing was made of chalk. I've never been so scared in my life. We took that in a box truck, packed safely. This is David Almaguer. This was their front space. This is Jimmy Keel, who is an absolute nut and awesome. This guy makes giant inflatable suits. And that's a Kyle Martin 300-point drop suspended piece with that tape on the bottom. This is the little space in Brooklyn that we work with. I had a show that was involved in New York and met a gallerist, and he said, "Can you show in my little space?" And I said, "Sure." And that's my piece in the side, which we busted open and 2,500 paper airplanes came out of. And then the one in the middle is Darren White's piece. And then the one on the right is a guy named John Cowan who lives in New York. And then Brooklyn Part 2, working with another gallery space. We took over after the Kansas project and had some really amazing LA artists and New York artists and San Antonio artists all showing together. This was China, which was awesome.
Now, how did that come about again?
Man, that is not a short story.
Well, then.
Well, the condensed version
yeah.
is I was working on the project in Kansas, and President Romo came by the Millworks and said, "I'm working on a project in China. Would you be interested?" And I said, "Sure." And it turned into this gigantic project that took a year and a half. Arturo Almeida is the chief curator. I was co-curator. And we brought Peter Brown from Houston, who's an amazing artist. Joel Salcedo, Anson
So it was a photography project.
Yeah, it was a
right?
photography exhibition in China.
And you brought artists to create new work in China.
In
correct?
China and their families. We all went. It was amazing. Thank you, Confucius Institute, UTSA, and everybody else. Then we had the National Convention for the Arts, so a 59-passenger bus came to us. And that was awesome because Fernando got a residency in Chicago because of it. And these were all these museum curators and museum people, and they're like, "This place is nuts, we love it," you know. It was great. And we brought the Little Big Town, which was the show that went to Kansas, for that back. This was really neat. These are 4 guys from the West Side that are graffiti artists that had never really presented in any kind of museum context or anything, but always wanted to. And I called Trevor, I said, "Trevor, do you want to do a graffiti mural for the National Convention of the Arts?" He's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's just something really cool, and a lot of people will see it." He's like, "All right, man." So he came out, and he did this mural, which they had never done anything that's not graffiti-based. So they said, "We're going to take it to the next level." And they created this in a matter of 4 hours. And what was really neat is Trevor and Nelson Wolfe were talking together at his wall about graffiti, which was super awesome. And at our studios are really the heart of the Millworks. And the gallery is definitely a big part of it. It's a big exchange program. We love doing it. We love our studios too. That's the note.
And thank you, Rex Hausmann. And now we'll hear from Luis Lopez about La Casa Rosa. Welcome, Luis.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how you started La Casa Rosa and when and why.
It was in 2003. We was an empty lot, and we were looking for a place to live and a place to work. We built a house, and one day we just decided that we were gonna paint the pink.
So did you design the house?
The house was designed by Gabriel Velasquez, a very good friend of mine, designer, also an artist. And I created a logo myself.
The
The
logo.
color was decided over a weekend.
And we'll see in a moment what the house looks like. So where are you located?
It's on 527 East Dewey, very close to San Antonio College.
Hmm. And when are you open?
We open on second Fridays by appointment.
Okay, let's look at some of the images that you brought us. So tell us again, what are we looking at then? This is the house?
That's the house, and it was created to be a multi-functional space. We live there, we paint there. I do just about everything there. I'm a prisoner.
Mhm. And the sculpture that we're seeing in the foreground?
Yeah, this is Jimi Hendrix's sculpture. The fence was designed by me, and definitely a very colorful space. This is interior, and it's pretty big and open, high ceilings. It's a very nice space to put big pieces in, and we live there, so we try to combine most of the time when we open up, we have to move furniture out.
Okay, so tell us about what's the Tobin Hill Art Alliance and Art on the Hill. What's that?
We on 2009 we decided that we were going to start an art walk to create opportunities for artists that were not having any opportunities around San Antonio. So we decided to use our neighborhood and our friends that live in the neighborhood, like Ray Palmer, Cindy Palmer,
Mm-hmm.
and we started this organization with the help of Margaret and Enrique Gutierrez and some other friends.
Okay, and how many participants do you have in the Tobin Hill Art Walk now?
Okay, we have sometimes up to 10 or 12 different venues that exhibit. They do their own exhibits.
Mm-hmm.
One of those venues is San Antonio College. We have
And Sama has also participated.
Sama also participated on it, and we have probably, according to the records, exhibit over 500 different artists from San Antonio. They have found venues in the neighborhood.
And tell us about the outdoor setting.
The outdoor setting is for work and with big pieces. This is a collaboration with James Hendrix and very colorful sculptures of metal. The piece on the bottom is by Rasmussen. It's a scorpion made out of wood.
Okay, and a little bit about the landscaping. Are you also responsible for that?
Yes, definitely. That's my doing. I have a lot of time on my hands. Sometimes I try not to paint that much. So I do a lot of work on the garden. I really enjoy my space, and that's one of my passions. Work on the garden. I have created another piece of art that I consider very personal, and it's open to the public.
Oh, whoops, wrong way.
Going the other way. These are some of the exhibitions that we have put up. This is the work of Pompa
On the lower left?
on the top.
On the top is Pump.
Right. It's in St. Mary's on the studio.
So where is that taking place?
It's on the studio of, it's a screen shop, B21, and they were part of the art walk for a couple of years, and then they move on doing other things. But there was a bunch of sculptures that Pompa created, and they caught a lot of attention to the public passing.
And these other images are shown at your space?
Right, the one on the bottom is a sculpture created by Kevin Arvin.
Mm-hmm.
And the sculpture on the right side is Henry Cardenas.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sculpture that we exhibit on the inside. This is the work of Enrique Gutierrez. That, by the way, he helped the Lions along with Margaret for 2.5 years. We actually going to be 4 years on the Lions. And Raul Castellanos' work that was exhibited also in the same space, in the same show. Ben Mata's work is
This is currently on view, is it not?
right. It's gonna be, but yeah, no, that was the past exhibition. He was one of my favorite artists. On the left side, on top, Raul Sabin with some friends came and joined us that night. On the bottom part, we have seed Van Sant, and one of the clients acquired one of his paintings. Jody Taylor, pastel artist, a very good friend of ours that actually doubles as our bartender when we have shows.
And on the bottom?
On the bottom we have one of the exhibitions with music that I like to have, the art by Juanito, and some viewers that are enjoying the exhibit. The work Paco Felici on the left side on top, and again that's one of my pieces on the background, and Enrique Gutierrez and his family, and more action on the bottom, action samples of people that have come to exhibit and see the exhibit. This is another view of the movement.
And I think Richard Tights has been in every presentation.
Oh yes, he's there all the time.
Yeah.
First thing. Exactly.
And then this is a project you worked on in the studio, right? And then showed it elsewhere?
Exactly. I wanted to show this because that's the way I utilize my studio to work on big pieces, because I have high ceilings, but most of the time I do a lot of public art, so I'm busy doing big pieces. So this is one that I did for San Antonio on aluminum.
And is that the same space that you also use for exhibitions at some times?
Exactly.
So it
I
doubles as a studio.
It doubles as a studio, and also living quarters, an entertainment place. This is a map that we include on each month for the art walk. We fix it up differently every month, and with the help now, again, we mentioned Fernando Andrade is here somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He came to help us and take Enrique Gutierrez's position.
I see.
And Margaret, of course, is next to him.
Mm-hmm.
And we list the different venues, and with a little flag, the brush that we have designed to be like a marker for each.
In front of each spot.
Right.
Yes.
It's a bucket.
So basically, on the second Friday of the month, people can come to one space, and they can drive on their own, or they can take the trolley.
Now we also have a trolley. We provide a trolley that brings people around the neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts at 6, and usually starts at La Casa Rosa. But it's free. Everything is free, and most of the time we have more up to 8, 10, 12 different galleries and open spaces.
And still going strong.
It's still going strong, sir. It's gonna be 4 years in June, and we're gonna make a big celebration. We'll probably let you know.
A 4-year anniversary party?
Yes, we have a party.
Okay,
Right
stay tuned for that. And now I'd like to invite all of the artists to come sit with me. Are these mics on?
Yeah.
Okay. It's taken a little longer than we had anticipated, so I'm going to start with maybe 1 or 2 questions rather than 4, and so we can open it up to the audience. So the first question I have for all of you is, since you're all practicing artists, how does running a space like these spaces you've shared with us interfere or not with your ability to function as an artist? Justin, you want to take that?
It interferes a little bit, but I think it also it helps in some ways. Ethel Shipton told me a long time ago. She said, running an artist-run spaces really helps this feeling as an artist of being like a bird with your mouth open, just waiting for someone to drop something in. So you're able to give other people opportunities to do that, and along the way you end up having a lot that.
So it kind of juices you up creatively.
So
to bounce off of the other artist's work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly?
Well, I think in the beginning, we have 6 shows a month now, and in the beginning when we started in Chicago, we had a show every month, and I know you do a show every month, and you're very
I always say I'm not going to do
that.
it, and we keep doing it.
But
Every year.
I just have to tell you, back in backing up to 6 a year is delightful. It's
So
delightful.
Kimberly, how do you budget your
Sounds
time?
amazing.
How do you manage to do both?
Well, I was thinking about this earlier, and I almost said, well, the gallery kind of runs itself, but it doesn't. I mean, there's emails that need to be sent out to attract people. There's Facebook pages that need to be updated. There's press releases that need to be written. There's gallery visits that need to happen. There's shows that need to be planned. I mean, just when I think I've got it, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm all caught up. And then I'm like, crap, it's almost next year and I got to get a calendar.